Okay, so welcome to our music class. I am Jason R. Ending. You can call me Sir Jason, and I will be your grade 8 MAPE teacher for the school year 2020-2021. Today, we're going to discuss about the music of Indonesia. And this is our learning objectives for today. Number 1, identify the types of gamelan and its instruments. Second, value the importance of musical tradition of Indonesia. Third, classify the traditional instruments of Indonesia. Now, let's define what is a Javanese gamelan. Okay, when we say gamelan, it is an ensemble composed of several indigenous instruments. Okay, gamelan is a Javanese word that literally means orchestra. It used for court music and style of playing gives solemn character. A gamelan may consist of 4 to 25 musicians, and it may include singers as required. Next is what we call the Balinese gamelan. It used for sacred music. Second, use of fast and rattling sounds of cymbals makes distinctive characters. Okay, so this is a trivia about the gamelan music of Indonesia. So Indonesia has many music schools where you can take formal lessons in gamelan. So this shows how popular gamelan is. Okay, now let's go on with what we call the vocal music. First is what we call the pasid hen. When we say pasid hen, it is a female soloist singer. Next is gerong. Gerong refers to the unison male chorus. Now let's go on to the instruments of Balinese gamelan. First, we have the vertical hanging gongs. Okay, the vertical hanging gongs are hanging on large wooden stands that gongs are drilled with 2 holes in the rim and a strong piece of cord is tied onto it. And this is the structure of a hanging gongs. I want to tell you what are the importance of these gongs. Okay, so these gongs are used to mark the beginning and the end of a certain piece. They also punctuated the different segments of the metric cycle. This is the gong ageng and the gong siem. Okay, so the left side is what we call the gong ageng. When you say gong ageng, it is the set of the largest among the hanging gongs. It creates a low pitch, very deep sound. Even its structure is big, the pitch of this gong ageng is very low. Unlike the gong shem, which is from the right side of the picture, the gong shem are also called gong suukan. Gong suukan. Okay, so these are the medium-sized hanging gongs. So they are a higher pitch than gong ageng. Okay, so third example of a hanging gongs is what we call the kempul. Okay, so kempul, so these are small hanging gongs with a set of pitch depending on the scale used. The hanging gongs, which is kempul, has different structure or different sizes, but it depends on the scale used on these gongs. So next, the Ketel Gongs. Okay, when we say the Ketel Gongs, these gongs are used mainly in rain-making rites. This means that these gongs subdivide the melody into several musical phrases. And these are the examples of a Ketel Gongs. First, we have what we call the kenong. Okay, the kenong, it is a small deep-tuned gong used as a punctuating instrument. These gong are placed on racks suspended by cords. So the musician sits in the middle of the gongs, which contain all the pitches of 2 scales. So as you can see, this is just like a a drum. So whereas the person sit in the middle of the gongs. So second is we have the ket hook. Okay, so when we say ket hook, this is a single kettle gong. So it played in different ways depending on the speed of the music. Unlike the other gongs, it doesn't not resonate. Instead, it gives out a tuk, tuk, tuk sound. Hence, its name. Next is what we call the kempiang. Okay, so when we say kempiang, this is a set of two kettle gongs set to a higher pitch than that of the ket hook. Unlike the ket hook, the kempiang is allowed to ring, thus producing a sound created using the kempiang is the piang sound. Hence, its name. Next is what we call the bonang paneros. Okay, the bonang paneros, it is a higher octave set of bonang barong. It plays a fast melodic pattern based on the melody that the bonang barong plays. Now, let's define what is a bonang barong. So, this is the bonang barong. The bonang barong composed of about a dozen kettle gongs. It is one of the primary instruments of the gamelan. So as it plays the melody an octave lower than its counterpart. So the difference between bonang paneros and bonang barong, the bonang paneros has a higher octave while the bonang barong has the lower octave or lower pitch. Next is what we call the metallophones. Okay, when we say metallophones, it is a musical instrument in which the sound producing body is a piece of metal consisting of tuned metal bars, tubes, balls, or plates. These instruments help in playing the melodic parts of gamelan. Okay, let's have the examples of these metallophones. First, we have what we call the saron demung. This is the biggest and the lowest sounding member of the saron family of instruments. It has 6 or 7 thick metallic keys resting over a resonator. Second is what we call the gender slendem. It is encased in a wooden frame. Okay, so its structure is from a wooden frame. And it has 6 or 7 wide and thin metal keys suspended by a string over tuned bamboo or metal tubes, which function as resonators. So it composed of metals, and the same thing, the structure or the cover or the layer of this is made of wooden frame. Next is what we call the gender barong. It has 12 to 14 narrow and thin metal keys. Okay, so it plays a pitch which is an octave higher than the gender slendem. Next is what we call the gambang kayu. So this is a xylophone, 17 to 23 keys on a wooden resonator. Now we have what we call the zithers. Okay, zithers, a stringed instrument whose strings are the same length as its soundboard. Okay, so these are the class of stringed instruments in the gamelan, like the metallophones. They enhance the melody of the ensemble. Okay, remember that the zithers is a stringed instrument. The first one is a zither. Okay, when we say zither, it is a small zither, also angled and resting on the floor. It has 10 to 26 metal strings. It complements the selempong. Now the selempong is this. So this is what we call the selempong. The angle toward the player, it is supported by 4 legs with 20 to 26 metal strings. Okay, remember the strings of these two. For zither, we have 10 to 26 strings. And for the selempung, we have 20 to 26 metal strings. Next is what we call the rebab. It is classified as a spike fiddle with 2 strings. One string is wrapped up around the peg at the lower end, providing 2 playing filaments. Rebab is played vertically. Next, we have what we call the aerophones. Aeropones, so these are instruments that produce sounds through air. Okay, so from the word itself, aeropones, air. Okay, the examples of these are, the first one is what we call the suling. Okay, when we say suling, it is an end-blown bamboo flute, and it is similar to the suling of Maguindanao. Okay, the suling is usually played freely, but it is often played at the end of each melodic phrase. Next is what we call the percussion instruments. So this kind of instrument produce sound through hitting. It usually set the timing of pace of the melody. Meaning, for this instrument, hit the percussion instrument to function. The examples of these are, first, we have the kendang. The kendang gending. Okay, so kendang gending, it is the largest hand-played drum with 2 heads placed on opposite ends of a barrel-shaped shell. Next, we have what we call the bedhug. It is a large stick beaten barrel drum with heads played on the cylindrical body suspended in a wooden frame. Okay, so the bedhug is occasionally played with other drums to accompany a dance. Next is the kendang ketipung. When we say kendang ketipung, it is the smallest barrel-shaped drum. It is played with the kendang gending. Next is the kendang siblon. It is a middle-sized barrel-shaped drum. Now let's consider this gamelan tuning. Okay, so we have 2 gamelan tuning. First is what we call the Pelog scale. Okay, for the Pelog scale, it has 7 notes or 7 pitch. To get an idea of what the Pelog scale sound like, play the notes E, F, G, A, B, C, D on a keyboard. So most sets of gamelan are tuned either to the Slendro or to the Pelog scale. So others are tuned to both. These are called double gamelan. Next, we have the Slendro scale. Okay, for the Slendro scale, it has 5 notes. And scale is called the Slendro. Gamelan notes don't exactly match Western scales, but the Slendro is roughly equivalent to the notes of the major pentatonic scale on D, E, F sharp, A, and B. Now, for you to better understand what sounds create with this 2 gamelan tuning, I will show you a video. So everybody watch this.
For gamelan, there are 2 main tuning systems, Slendro and Pelog. Although these tuning systems do vary dramatically across the whole of the Indonesian country, there are some principles which do stay the same. This is a Slendro-tuned gender from Central Java, and its Slendro scale there are always 5 different pitches. Here's the first one.
Okay, so that is for Slendro tuning.
That's number 1 again. They often number them simply 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, back to 1. And the 5 pitches are always evenly spaced out within an octave.
Okay, so that is the 5 pitch for Slendro.
So to the Westerners' ear, they can sound very out of tune, because obviously on most Western instruments using a 12-note chromatic scale, we can't divide it into 5 equal parts. This is from Central Java. In Bali, the Slendro scale is mainly only used for shadow puppetry or for some of the ancient ensembles. Of course, it's very rare to have any gamelan instruments that use both Slendro and Pelog tuning systems. You would have to have a whole set of Slendro tuning instruments and a completely different set of Pelog instruments.
Okay, now let's go with the
This
Pelog
instrument
tuning.
is a gangsa from Bali, very similar range.
Okay, so for the
of
Pelog
pitches
tuning, we have
compared to the instrument
7
I just showed you, the
tones or
Slendro.
7 pitches.
This is Pelog tuned. There are 7 tones in the Pelog scale. Here's the first one. Moving up. Back to number 1 again. However, what a lot of people get very confused about is that you would very rarely play one piece of music that uses all 7 tones. You just pick 5 of them. So if you were going to number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 7, you might just use numbers 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. That's the most common scale. However, in Bali, it's very rare they actually give numbers to the pitches. They normally have the solfege names ding, dong, deng, dung, and dang.
Okay, so now let's sum it up. Okay, so every country has its own musical tradition that symbolizes their culture, beliefs, and their identity as Indonesian people. So that's all for the music of Indonesia. So I hope you learned a lot for today, and this is for a reminder for everyone. So for your assignment, okay, so I hope you learned a lot for our music class for today. Apply those learnings that you have today in answering your modules. So thank you for listening. God bless and see you on our next online class.